Welcome to a new challenge called Student Marks. Here in this project we're going to get and print a list of students and their marks, and we're going to do this in stages. Stage 1, we create the list of student names and use a for loop to print these names. Stage 2, we write a function that uses input to get the student marks. So get student mark one at a time, and then we're going to print the marks for all the students. Stage 3, we pass the student's name to the function so it prints the name and mark. Stage 4, we return the mark from the function and print the name and mark outside of the function. So stage 1, we just get the list and use a loop to print the list. Stage 2, we create the function and we get the mark using input, and then we print the mark inside that function without any passing or returning. Stage 3, we pass something to the function, which is the student's name, and then stage 4, we get the mark in the function and return it, and then we print the name and the mark outside of the function, so after we call it. Okay, there's also a bonus stage. How would you print all of the students together? So how would you print a list of student and marks all together rather than one at a time? Do you know? We have to think about it. So here's a hint. Marks.append mark is a way that you can add the variable mark to a list called marks. Does that make sense? There's a list called marks with an S, and there's a variable called mark, which is the student mark. And to put that number inside the list called marks, we use .append. Okay, we've already created our list. You can see we've called it students, square brackets, and then the name of each student. Obviously they're all strings, and then we finish with the square bracket. Now we need a loop, so we have 11 students here, so we can use range 11. Don't forget the colon, and to see each student it can print, and then we can have students, and then we could have I in the square brackets, and that will print the students. Let's call this students, and you can see it's printed it. Actually, what you could do if you wanted to, you could say, let's press the insert key because it's deleting everything, print names in students, for names in students, and print names. So that might be a simpler way of doing it. And we run that, and you can see it prints the names. Now we need to add a function. We generally put functions at the beginning. If you need to import something, you do it first. Apart from that, we have functions at the top. So we want to get the marks. So we're going to say define, DEF. Get marks is our function name. Brackets, we're not passing anything, so they're empty. Colon. Now what do we need to do? We need to get the marks. So let's say mark equals input, and then we have our message is something like please enter the mark, and then we're just going to print the mark. Okay, so we need to call that, and let's print the name first, and then we've got get marks. So we call the function get marks. Remember, you have the empty bracket. Now as we're using a loop, we can just call it once inside the loop, and it will call it each time for each student. Okay, should we try it? Let's run it. So, oh, we've misspelled enter. So let's enter the mark. Let's give everyone 90, and you can see it's printed the name and the badly spelled please enter the mark. So not great, but it did work. So we've got please enter the mark here, and we've printed it. Doesn't look very nice, but we're going to improve it anyway. Our next step is to pass the names. So we've got names, and we're going to pass it here. I'm just going to call it name in the function. So we can say please enter the mark for, and then we can have the name. Let's put a comma here. So then we know who the mark is for. So we don't need to print the name here. We can print the name and mark here once it's been entered. Okay, shall we run that? So something's wrong. What's wrong? We've got, we've got the input. It doesn't like this. What we can do is we can say message equals. I'm going to take this out because it's saying input can only have one thing inside it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say please enter the mark for, and then because the name is a string, I can just add the two together. So let's call that message and have message inside the input. Now let's try again. Enter the mark for Janir. Let's put the marks in. You can see when I enter in the mark, obviously I'm not making any mistakes, but we have all of our students with all of their marks. So that was step 3. Now step 4, we need to return something. Basically we need to return the name. Well, actually we don't need to return the name, we only really need to return the mark, don't we? So we return the mark. So once we get the mark back, we can put it inside where we define our function, so we get the mark back, and now we can print the name and the mark, and that's going to do exactly what we did before, but we've now returned it. So we've passed the name and we've returned the mark. So let's run this. Let's put in any marks that we like. Now obviously we might want to change this code, and if we change this code to make sure the input was correct, for example, because we might do try except and do a loop to make sure these were correct. Let's say I've accidentally put over 100 in. It's not checking anything, so I should really check these marks. Well, rather than having to do this 11 times in our code, I can just change our function code once, and then it will change the code correctly for all of the students. So what it means is that we can build our code very, very simply and then put in the detail that's required to make sure it works correctly later when we know it all works. So that's something that's really handy about functions. Now it asks, could we print all of these together? So what we've got here is that we've got the mark, but we perhaps want to store it. So let's create another list called marks, and then marks, we can use the append and the mark, and then that will save this mark in this list. Now we now have 11 students and 11 marks. So if we want to print them again, actually we're probably better off using the range here, because we've got 11 students and 11 marks. If we use the range, we can say print, what's wrong here? Print students, and obviously it's 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 10, so the 11 students, and also the marks, which will be in the same place. So we enter the marks here in the function, they come back, each mark comes back, and then it gets put inside this empty list. If you want to create an empty list, you just put 2 square brackets with nothing inside. Then we use append. So there's different types of things we can do with lists. It's called a list function, append, and that adds the mark to the end of the list, okay? And then we run it and we can print. We can see actually it should be students rather than student. So let's run list to see if it works. Enter the mark. Let's just put in 90s and make it nice and quick. So we've got all the 11 students and the 11 marks, and there we have it. We have our list of 11 students with their 11 marks.